to you, oh yes, and to your recalcitrant crew. And love from the lady next door to the zoo.
This is the easiest 2 cases of Mount Cameron I ever made. I've never seen them so quiet. Okay, next up we have another former Commodore, Wally Elton.
I'll tell you a very brief story about the legend of this man and where you're standing. Legends, you know, are made up of fact and fancy, and you can decide for yourself which is which. 20 years ago, the land where you're standing was not here. That's a fact. High tides submerged where you're now standing. Storm-driven winds went over the tennis court. And later on in this story, the trustees forgot what that cost. But I want to tell you that in the early 1960s,
Mr. Master Ceremony, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Frankly, I think I could probably sell it for several $100s, because here I am with the privilege of either roasting or toasting Bill Gibbons, and I have him lying practically prostrate in front of me. You remember that scene in Moby Dick where old Ahab had chased a whale for thousands of miles and many, many months? He's standing there with a harpoon back like this, leg up against the gun of the longboat. This is the way I feel. I got you, Gibbons. Now, Willie, it's going to be short. Whether you think it's sweet or not, I'll leave to you. You know, we really know a friend or a man by his style. And Gibbons' style has been that I think epitomizes that phrase, right, wrong, but never in doubt. I think the rightest you ever were, Bill, was in 1944 when you rescued Carolyn from the Nurse Corps in the South Pacific and took her to New Zealand and married her in that little chapel in Christ Church. For a long time, it's only been right one. You know, that style of yours, you're scared of a whole lot of kids through several generations. But what you don't know is you've made a number of kids capitalists. They used to come and they collect that $2 and they leave their hair on. Right. 2 weeks later, right. Another $2. I had some kids that came home and said, you know, Mr. Gibbons is the greatest source of money that we know of. It's better than working. You intimidate a lot of adults, too, along the way, Bill. But damn it, your style had to be right, because of the great number of your friends that are here today. This is, I think, a testimony to that. We try to measure people by their achievements in life. And I'll tell you, I drove many hundreds of miles trying to figure out what you had achieved, but I finally got 3 things that could be considered achievements.
I never heard of them.
You have heard of them, so the rest of us. First is in the area of municipal bonds. Now, any of you people that have ever sat on a sailor's terrace, or cruised on Long Island Sound, or been out on the front deck of Hell's A-Poppin' with Bill Gibbons, for any period of time, have learned about municipal bonds. And you know that the credit of the state of New York, et cetera, is very important, and Bill has really taught us all a great deal about municipal bonds. I'm glad he's retiring from the business, because I think your friend up there in Albany might screw it all up. But anyhow, you are certainly the Mr. Chips of the municipal bond business. I think your second area of achievement has to do, and this is the only serious comment I'm going to have other than the one about your lovely bride, about your seamanship. And as a little boy, my idol was the bosun in 2 years before the mast. And I've watched seamanship around the Sound, I guess, for about 50 years now. And Billy, you've got some peers, but you don't have anybody can better you in this area. You are really the seaman supreme, and I salute you for that. think the greatest achievement, however, of this square, conservative, solid Bill Gibbons is in another world. You know, when you started in the world of rock, Elvis Presley was already king of rock and roll. And what you all in this group gathered here don't realize is that Elvis is George Gibbons' idol. And he couldn't carry a tune, but boy, he found another meaning of the word rock and he carried it out. And Bill, you were very successful. We've got today Bruce Springsteen and the Bon Jovis, for the American public and the world at large to follow. And they are the rock kings of the world. The American Yacht Club has no equal in our rock king, George Gibbons.
It is pre-written. Now, this all came about because Robin asked us what it was like to grow up with the buzzard. You notice the profile. So we put together a little song, and when we get up here, well, we need the microphone for all of us. So what are you doing over there?
Here we go.
Okay.
This is not as funny as some of the telegrams.
No. Our old man, he had a wife. What a saint, what a saint, what a saint. And with this wife he had 6 kids. Oh my, oh my, oh my. With chaos here and bedlam there. Here a kid, there a kid, everywhere kids, kids. Our old man, this was his life. What fun, what fun, what fun. Our old man, he had a boat to sail in wind or hail. And on this boat he taught his kids, go splice a rope, you dope. With a whipping here, and a ball in there. Here a knot, there a knot, everywhere a knot, knot. Our old man, he taught us well, to sail, to sail, to sail.
Not to mention sing.
Our old man, he was so mean. Oh, Bly, oh, Bly, oh, Bly. And reputations are what they seem. Literally, he was Bly. With a haircut here and $2 there. Here a bill, there a bill, everywhere a bill, bill. Our old man, he had his way. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Our old man, he had a club, AYAYC. And at this club, he made a point, surrounded by the sea. With a load of rock here and a load of rock there. Here a rock, there a rock, everywhere a rock, rock. Our old man, he made his point, as everyone can see. Our old man, he had a dream, AYAYC. And with this dream, he gave us all some land for families. With a cool breeze here and a hot grill there. Here a spark, there a spark, everywhere a spark, spark. Our old man, he's quite a dad. And for this tribute, we are glad. Oh, thank you, AYC.
We promised Gibbons he couldn't talk, but his son decided to do it for him.
With them took guts and acute political savvy. Most people would have preferred to have dumped those rocks at some competitor's front yard, perhaps Larchmont Yacht Club. And all I can say, it's very timely the presentation is made this time because it's taken 20 years to grow grass on these rocks, and he's lucky that they didn't send him a bill for the grass seed and the topsoil.
Oh, crush.
You're not allowed to talk.
I first got into Bill Gibbons when I took his appendix out. That was a trial because he went home 2 days before I thought he should. And I went up to visit him 2 days later, and he was out raking leaves. So that's the beginning. I could tell so many stories. I'd be here forever, and we don't want that. But I have to tell you one story, a couple of stories. One is, I don't know, Will, whether you ever knew this, Bill. Carolyn, who used to study the tide charts on the fantail of Old Mary Ann, was reading her dime novel inside the tide books. Did you ever know that? Anyway, that's perfectly true. Madeline was onto it because she found the same trick. A way of getting out of work. The only other thing I can think of is one day when we were bringing Mary Ann, the old Mary Ann, back down from Nantucket. And it was a no-wind day, so we were motoring. And George was, your assistant crew, was along with me. And you took George down below and you started to stencil GBG on everything in the cabin. And finally the word came out. George said, "God, Jad, are we going to put GBG on every piece of toilet paper?" So this is the kind of guy he is, but he's mellowed some now. I don't think he does it on the toilet paper anymore. And everybody knows which part of his boat is organized because he really had his boat organized. So.
There is one very special rock. This rock...
That was there.
The one on top. The one on top. Yeah. This is the only unnatural rock at American Yacht Club which Bill did not bury. This rock, he's just said himself, was here. That rock was not. That's the only unburied rock that Bill ever put here, and we decided that we would do something with this rock so that in 40 or 50 years, when these kids are wandering around with their children and grandchildren, they look at this rock and say, how did this rock get here? It's sort of, it's an odd rock. It's a big, flat rock just sitting here. But anyway, let's just, there's something on the rock. Let's take off what's on the rock and let's say what is going to be on the rock. Bill, all of these rocks are your rocks, but this rock is particularly one which we want to dedicate to you. This is truly your rock, although you're not allowed to move it. And now, at long last, you've been a very good person. The ripstop is held. Now, after saying that this is no longer Picnic Point, this is Gibbons Point, dedicated Commodore George B. Gibbons, Jr., a man of foresight, wisdom, and concern, June 25th, 1989. This is your rock. As I said, you can't move it, Bill, but you can enjoy it. And now is your turn for rebuttal.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all waited for. Have you all eaten? Do you have sleeping bags? Are your children taken care of for the evening? I present the Rock Commodore, who made these is incredible.
I would like to speak where I can be heard the best. Is it, can you all hear me here? Talk about a surprise party. This is a surprise. You're going to have tears in my eyes.
No.
Way to go! I'm sorry, but we finally did it. Let me say this. You heard my kids talk. The old man's a big bastard, and everybody in the yacht club knows it. They know it in Nantucket and everywhere. So Vern Chisholm had to bail me out. He got the job of being treasurer of the club, and after I busted it. But if it hadn't been for Bert and Bill Keyes, and when I had a real nasty job, I always got Wally Elton because he was the good guy. And I never did anything that the board didn't know about. If the rocks were available on the New York State Thruway in the middle of the morning and they got dumped here in the afternoon, I convened a meeting of the board. In my own mind, I convened the meeting of the board. For their kids, I think, aren't we lucky to have those people as members of the American Yacht Club? I can't thank you enough.
I have one letter that I'd like to read. And this is from Sister Pauline, who's out in the mountains. Dedication of the Picnic Point, June 25th. Dear Dad.
Yes, somebody else read it.
As I have hiked across the Brooks Range and stand on the Alaska's coastal plain, I have a big grin on my face. I'm thinking of you tonight at the Yacht Club. It is wonderful the AYC named the Picnic Point after you. And there is one thing that you taught us, and that is in the face of all opposition, we must fight for the places and the environments to which we are so attuned. And after the battle, people will learn that you have brought them simple pleasure and an appreciation for the Crusader. A big hug, Pauline.
I think we all want to thank Bill. This is a very serious occasion. We love the acreage that we have at American Yacht Club, and we all recognize how much of it has come from his efforts, and oftentimes his efforts really acting as a person rather than acting as a committee. I am the last person, I think, to say anything here. He had a remarkably short rebuttal. So how about anybody who hasn't yet had dinner, have dinner, and let's keep on celebrating Gibbons Point. We're right on into the next century. Thank you very much.
I'm going to get 2 minutes more here. Catherine's father was Frank Heiss. Frank Heiss knew that Mr. Gibbons was lying to the board when he told him he had all the approvals needed. Frank Heiss and I had had many conversations. And I said, Frank, he says, you shouldn't lie to the board. I said, Frank, I know I shouldn't lie to the board. But they want to know if I have all the approvals. My God, you wouldn't live long enough to get all the approvals. So I had the approval of the Corps of Engineers, and I approved all the other approvals. And Frank is Catherine's father, and he knew that I was right, that I should give those approvals.
Fabulous. That's fabulous. No. The jolly good fellow, he's a jolly good fellow, and so say all of us. Damn no.
Well, I think he built this point. He put all the land down and everything else, all the rocks, so we could have picnics in it. And we could enjoy it. Tonight's been a big party just for him.
There we go. He's smiling. Yay! There's Big U. Hey!
I didn't give a damn what I paid for it. It was a question of doing it and getting it done.
Yay! There's Miller.
You know as well as I do that if you asked for all the permissions that were necessary, there was no way in God's world that I was going to do it in my lifetime. So I wanted to do it. And I said, Catherine's father knew I was lying to the board when I lied to the board. That I had him all the permissions. I said, yes.
Yeah, I knew it all. Kind of tough there.
But goddamn, we got it.
Lay the brick.
We got it on. Yay, guys.
Wave.
Come on, little Brian. Come on.
Party.
I wasn't going to leave my goddamn. You succeeding.
Vivian. Hi, George. Vivian's calling you. Who's Bobby? Wait a minute, we're going to get a picture of the sign, Jackie.
She goes mountain climbing. It's all over the world.
That's the way it's
We gotta get a picture of the sign with a pop in it, too.
Very, very fun. When they go.
Ryan, I forgot her name.
Jacqueline. Jackie, hi, wave.
That's right.
There's your dad, right there.
That's Lily, correct? I loaned her clothes when she was this big. Yeah.
Jackie, pull on Ray's bow tie.
Is it a snapper? Hi, how are you? Hi, I'm looking at this one here. Goodness, I just saw one of your children. I know. I saw you. I saw it. Well, it is getting older. This is George. Hi, Dr. Duncan. You have a good time. Where do you live now? Not right.
Everybody else got cool. I'm sweating.
Big senior headed. Stanley. Yeah, she's